I remember the air in the paddock back then. It felt heavier, thicker, as if every breath carried the static of a storm waiting to explode. This wasn't just another rivalry. This wasn't Prost versus Senna, where the violence was visible, loud, and unmistakable. No, McLaren versus Ferrari at the end of the 1990s was a different kind of war. Colder, sharper, quieter, and far more dangerous. A war of in-ears, a war of directors, a war of philosophies, and finally, a war of two men who understood that greatness only means something when you have a worthy enemy. On one side, Mika Häkkinen, silent, precise, unshakable, a man who drove like he was solving an equation at 300 kilometers per hour, elegant, almost delicate, until the very moment he struck. On the other side, Michael Schumacher, relentless, merciless, a driver who didn't race for victory, he consumed it. He was willing to bend himself in the world around him until only one result remained: domination. And I watched as the sport bent with them. Everything began in 1998, the year the rules changed and the world changed with it. The FIA's new regulations, narrow cars, groove tires, reset the playing field. But what nobody knew was how violently it would throw Ferrari and McLaren into the same ring. McLaren arrived with a weapon disguised as a race car. The MP413 wasn't just fast, it was supernatural. So fast, in fact, that whispers started traveling through the paddock before the first race had even ended. I remember those whispers. People spoke in half sentences, as if afraid the walls might be listening. Something's different about that car. That braking stability? Impossible. They found something we didn't. And then the word everyone tried not to say aloud: traction control. No one proved anything. Nothing illegal was ever found. But in the paddock, truth doesn't matter. Perception does. And perception became fuel for Ferrari. But while rumors swirled like smoke, the real danger lay elsewhere, in the garages, in the motorhomes, in the meetings behind closed doors, because both teams knew that 1998 was an arms race disguised as a championship. Every weekend felt like standing between two tectonic plates grinding against each other.
Ross Brawn scribbled on notepads like he was trying to rewrite destiny, and mechanics worked with the stiff, anxious movements of people who knew their jobs, their futures, depended on catching an enemy who had already disappeared into the distance. McLaren, on the other hand, they smelled blood. Ron Dennis carried himself with a level of precision that felt engineered. Everything about him, from his posture to his wording, was a weapon. He didn't need to shout. His calm was enough to terrify half the paddock. And make no mistake, Dennis and Todt hated each other. Not the theatrical, public hatred of managers shouting into microphones. No, this was quiet hatred, controlled hatred, the kind that builds empires, the kind that destroys them too. And somehow, amid all of this, Häkkinen and Schumacher remained strangely connected. Not friends, not rivals in the Prost-Senna way. It was something else, something deeper. A silent understanding between two men who recognized the same fire in each other's eyes. But that fire would soon scorch everything around them. By mid-season, Ferrari was closing in. Each race tightened the tension. You could feel it in the garages, in the hospitality suites, even in the press conferences where Mika remained calm and Michael never blinked. And then came the day I'll never forget, the day when the rivalry became something darker. Spa, 1998. The storm hit like a biblical warning. Cars flying, water blinding, chaos unfolding corner after corner. And amid the madness, Schumacher drove like a man possessed. He carved through the field until only one man remained ahead, Häkkinen. But fate had other plans. Seconds later, Häkkinen spun. Schumacher surged forward, and a few laps later, the race detonated into legend, with David Coulthard, a lapped McLaren, at the center of the explosion. When Michael stormed toward the McLaren garage, I followed the sound of his footsteps, heavy, purposeful, violent. The Ferrari suit dripping with rain and fury, the red eyes of a man who felt robbed. "He tried to kill me," he screamed. And for a moment, just a moment, it felt like the world stopped spinning. Ron Dennis stepped forward, jaw clenched, ready to be the wall between Schumacher and the universe. The silence that followed was the kind you feel in your bones. And from that day on, the war turned personal. 1999 only escalated everything. Ferrari arrived hungrier, more prepared, faster, more desperate. But even desperation bows to fate, and fate struck at Silverstone. The crash, the wall, the broken...
With Schumacher gone, Ferrari fractured. Pressure cracked the facade. Barrichello's emotions ran high. The team scrambled. Todt tightened control. Brawn buried himself in strategy simulations. And in the quiet corners of the paddock, I heard rumors that Ferrari's internal departments were blaming one another.